I still remember that night vividly, the night when my world tilted on its axis. My husband, Daniel, was on a business trip, and I had the entire house to myself. I had always relished these rare evenings alone, indulging in a good book and a glass of wine. But that night, something was different. The house was unusually quiet. Not the comforting kind of quiet, but an eerie, heavy silence that seemed to press against my skin. Every creak of the wooden floorboards, every rustle of leaves outside felt amplified, sending shivers down my spine. I brushed off my unease, convincing myself it was just my overactive imagination. I settled into bed with my book, the soft glow of the bedside lamp casting flickering shadows across the room. The occasional ticking of the clock on the wall felt louder than usual, and with every passing second, the sense of unease deepened. Then I felt it, a warmth at my back, a solid presence, unmistakably human. My breath hitched. I knew that feeling. It was the comforting sensation of someone lying beside me, their body heat radiating against mine. My first thought was irrational relief. Daniel came home early, but even before I turned, my mind screamed at me. Daniel wasn't supposed to be home for another 2 days. Slowly, I turned my head. The warm presence vanished instantly, leaving behind a cold emptiness that sent a sharp chill through me. My heart pounded as my eyes scanned the room. Nothing. Just the empty bed, the stillness of the night, and the faint whisper of wind against the window. The lamp flickered slightly, casting shifting patterns along the walls that made my skin crawl. I reached out to the other side of the bed, pressing my hand against the mattress where I had felt the warmth. It was cold. I sat frozen, my body unwilling to move, my mind racing through every possible explanation. A dream? A trick of the mind? The logical part of me insisted that I was imagining things, but deep down, something in me knew better. Then came the whisper, low, almost affectionate, right at my ear. "You weren't supposed to notice." My breath caught in my throat. I jolted up, switching on every light in the room, my pulse hammering like a drum against my ribcage. But there was no one. The door was locked, the windows shut. I was alone, or so I had thought. My hands trembled as I checked every corner of the room, then the hallway, then the entire house. Every door remained locked, every window unbroken. There was no sign of another presence, yet I knew what I had heard. It hadn't been a figment of my imagination. The rest of the night, I sat curled in the corner of my bed, every light in the house blazing. Sleep was out of the question. My mind kept replaying the whisper, the sensation of warmth at my back. I could still hear the words reverberating in my head, as if the voice had carved them into my very soul. The hours dragged on, each second stretching into eternity. I sat there, clutching the blanket around me like a fragile shield against the unknown. The air in the room felt heavier, almost charged with an unseen presence. Every tiny sound, a distant creak, the faint hum of the refrigerator downstairs, felt sinister, as if something unseen was watching, waiting. When Daniel finally returned 2 days later, I told him everything, my voice shaking as I recounted the details. I expected him to laugh, to dismiss my fears as the product of exhaustion or stress. But instead, he sat in silence, his expression darkening with every word. When I finished, he exhaled deeply, rubbing his temples as if debating whether to tell me something he had long kept hidden. He tried to comfort me, wrapping his arms around me in reassurance, offering rational explanations. Maybe I had a fever. Maybe it was just a vivid nightmare. But I could see the unease in his eyes. Then he admitted something that made my blood run cold. "I didn't want to scare you before," he said, voice low and hesitant. "But sometimes I wake up in the middle of the night and feel someone else in bed with us." My stomach lurched. I stared at him, searching his face for any sign that he was joking. He wasn't. He looked just as disturbed as I felt. The realization settled over me like a suffocating weight. I had spent years in this house, believing I knew every creak, every shadow, every secret it held. But now I wasn't so sure. That night, I refused to sleep. I kept every light in the bedroom on, the covers pulled up to my chin, my pulse hammering with every passing moment. But despite my best efforts to stay alert, exhaustion finally overtook me. And in that liminal space between wakefulness and slumber, I felt it again. A warmth at my back, a breath against my ear. A whisper, more insistent this time. "You weren't supposed to notice, but now you have." I haven't slept alone since.